Welcome to Victory Garden in the Wood River Valley. These cold season vegetables, as we said, they like cold temperatures. Here we're talking about air temperatures of above 50 degrees. I would say a soil temperature of maybe 45 degrees minimum. And I recommend the use of a soil thermometer and to check the different beds where we intend to plant because different areas have different microclimates and will warm up at different rates.
Mm-hmm.
And I just checked a raised bed this morning and it was at 44 degrees, whereas another bed that is at the ground level was at 33 degrees. So there's 10-degree difference already.
Yeah. For our gardens, we sort of notice this temperature change just depending on where the sun hits first. This would be the same at a home garden, where the sun is moving over the trajectory of a day and what materials are around it. So I'm sure, Manon, with your raised bed, the is it wood that shapes
It's wood,
it?
yeah.
So that's helping retain a little more heat as well. Generally, the interesting thing about raised beds is that I think in general, even if they're made of different materials or might even be on a slightly colder area of your yard, I'm under the impression that they retain heat better, just as a rule of thumb. So it's a nice way to go as a home gardener versus just putting it straight into the lawn level.
Mm-hmm. And we can actually warm up or help the beds to warm up earlier so we can plant earlier so that our crops don't mature into the heat season. We really want to take advantage of planting early. So to warm up our beds, we can use techniques like watering with warm water.
Mm-hmm.
And then covering our soil with a plastic, the old garbage plastic bags even.
Yeah.
For a few days, and that will warm up the soil pretty fast.
Yeah, and as well as having I think the cold frames have been pretty popular as well. So that could be another thing. If you happen to have an extra piece of glass or an extra window laying around, you could certainly just lay that over the soil as well. It's heavier than a piece of plastic, but it'll do the same thing.
And then another thing we use extensively around here is season extension, which is some fabric that you spread over your whole row, your whole bed.
You can do that with hoops or without. In general, I think a lot of these cold hardy plants do just fine with the fabric placed directly on them. It does help to have a small gauge wire hoop that you can make a little tunnel with as well to keep the frost will settle on the cloth instead of the plant, so it's helpful to have the cloth not touch the plant.
Great. And I use my own branches for hoops. When I have suckers around my trees,
that's
I
great.
bend them, I let them dry in a bent shape, and I use them as hoops.
That's awesome.
Oh, a note about the garden peas, they, if they're climbing peas, not the bush peas, they need to climb on something. And therefore you need to install a trellis. Ideally, you install your trellis before you plant your peas so you don't disturb the roots of the peas. So what kind of soil do we need? For all these cool season vegetables, the green leafy vegetables, we need a soil that is rich in organic matter. And all of these all of the green vegetables really like nitrogen, but not too much nitrogen either. Too much is not better than not enough. So personally, as a home gardener, organic gardener, I tend to I make my own compost and I tend to use my compost as my fertilizer. This way I cannot overdo it on any nutrients.
Mm-hmm.
But you garden on a large scale and you do apply fertilizers.
Yeah, we have found one of the local garden stores carries a certified organic chicken fertilizer that has the right ratios of the main nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. We did a soil test and found out what our nitrogen level was, and so we apply a pelleted organic chicken manure that does a slow release nitrogen into the ground. And we're in the process, because our particular large production area is relatively new, so we're in the process of, like you, Manon, making our own compost. And for that, we've sought out some chicken owners as well as some horse owners. So we're mixing that really rich in nitrogen animal manure in with a bunch of plant material to eventually get to the point of feeding our soil with our compost more. But it's a long trajectory.
And you were saying that you may actually have too much phosphorus in the soil. We're told as gardeners to make sure we have enough phosphorus at high altitude in the cold climate, because it really helps plants grow. But it's good to do a soil test, right?
Yes,
to find out if
this
already have too much phosphorus.
Yeah. So this is exactly why one should do a soil test. Our organization has a farm and a garden. At the farm, the phosphorus levels are just fine. At the garden, the phosphorus levels are too high, which means that we need to use a different kind of fertilizer. We need to feed the soil in a different way to get those good nitrogen numbers that don't get offset by too much more phosphorus. So, for example, chicken manure is really high in phosphorus, so we use different things like bat guano and horse manure that have much lower levels of phosphorus to add that nitrogen that's really needed.
Great. The extension office is really helpful with
yes.
orienting us or how to do our soil test, where to send it, and how to interpret the results.
Yeah, definitely.
So that
you're not alone.